they're all good artists. You know, if you give them a sketch or say, hey, this is what we want to come up with, they're going to do a pretty good sketch. So I would say that those guys that are good wall builders are good artists.
I'm Tyler Simmons. Welcome to In the Yard, a Western States podcast. From employees with decades of experience to customers working hard in the field. Join me for conversations with some of our industry's best and brightest to hear their stories of the heavy equipment world. Episodes will drop bi-weekly, so see you in the yard. So Dan, thanks for joining me. Much appreciated. Can you give us a quick introduction of who you are and what your role is?
Dan Kinney, rock placing company. A lot of people refer to it as RPC. President of the company, came on in 2019.
Oh, wow. So president over there came on in 2019. So when you came over, was your first role as president, or what was your role when you came over?
I came on as general manager.
Okay.
Kind of oversee all of the operations. So we have a place in Spokane. That's where we started at. A place in Boise and a place in Tri-Cities.
Okay.
Pasco. So
3 main locations that you guys have.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Primarily boulder retaining walls. So when my father-in-law, Terry Frost, started the business, he thought it would be more, you know, he wanted big boulders, landscape boulders, water features, ponds, that kind of stuff. And I think he quickly started to realize that really where the business was is more in boulder retaining walls. So, you know, could be a little wall that's 2 or 3 feet tall up to 22 feet tall.
And so when you look at retaining walls and what that is, what's the primary driver of why somebody would do a retaining wall?
Kind of depends. I would say usually it's someone wants to build something on a slope. So like could be a homeowner, maybe they have, you know, a 10 or 15 foot backyard off of their back porch and they want to have a larger yard, maybe put a pool in or something like that, and there's a downslope below their house. So maybe we would put in a 8 or 10 foot wall or a terrace wall, maybe at the bottom of their lot, and then backfill that and then build up their lot. So now they've got a flat backyard. They can go, you know, play cornhole, put a pool in, do things like that. There is one thing I will
add.
Yeah, one thing I want to add. When I was talking to Terry last night, just, hey, where did you get the idea for rock placing? I thought this was kind of cool. So he retired pretty early from the company he was at before, at ASC Machine Tools. He was a partner and retired probably early to mid 50s. But if anyone knows Terry, he's one of these guys that always has a project. I mean, like before he retired, built a, you know, custom Harley motorcycle, and he was all in on that motorcycle. Once it finished, it's still sitting in the barn of a Priest Lake now, hardly ever gets ridden. You know, did landscaping projects at his house, had a creek in his house or behind his house, a big pond down at the bottom with trout, built pergolas, all that stuff. He wanted to get a boulder retaining wall. Well, he was visiting, I was working for Boeing at the time. He would come over to Seattle, him and Maryland would come over and, you know, I'd be off working, Colin would be off working, whatever. And Terry and Maryland would drive around and he started to see boulder retaining walls and he really liked them, you know, thought they're cool, functional. So he came back to Spokane, wanted to have a boulder retaining wall, couldn't find anyone to build it. Finally found someone to do it, but this was like, I think in the back of his mind, he was already thinking this could be my next project. And he was there the whole time that wall was being built. And he's thinking, I could do this better. And so he found a company over on west side of Washington, worked with them on designing a rock truck, put a crane on the back or a loader on the back of it, and then came back to Spokane, basically parked that truck down at the Home and Yard show and started saying, I'm going to build boulder retaining walls. Hired Guy Smith. And I guess the rest is history. But one of the other stories he was talking about is when he was over in Seattle, I remember this, there was a small earthquake one time. And he was looking at the boulders, you know, an earthquake happens, saw a boulder wall. Yeah, the boulders might have moved around, but then they just settled down. And then he goes along and he sees keystone block walls or concrete block walls. And all of a sudden they had cracks in them from the concrete or from the earthquake. And that's when he realized not only are boulder walls, you know, aesthetically good looking, but they're really functional. So anyway, I thought that was a good, kind of a cool story. Was he mentioned it last night, is that seeing that earthquake and witnessing that earthquake and what happened is one of the reasons, and he started the business.
That's kind of cool how like you just see a need and then fill the need. And then I think it's kind of cool on Terry to sit there and watch the guy build the wall while taking, I'm just imagining a guy taking notes. Yep. Step 1, do better. Step
Oh
2,
yeah.
do better. Like his little notebook out. There's no, okay,
Oh yeah.
mentally or physically, he's doing the same
And
thing.
he does have a little, all the guys will talk, he does have a little pad of paper
Oh, that's awesome.
and a little pencil about that long,
Oh yeah.
almost always in his back pocket.
Oh yeah. So he's got it out, taking his notes real quick, putting it back.
Yeah, everyone refers to it as his butt pencil.
That's awesome. So you just basically make people's lives better by giving them flat space.
I'd say pretty much that's what it is. Yeah, flat space. And then, developers, it seems like a lot of the flat ground is gone. So now developers, you're from down in Meridian, you see out there in Star and some of those places where they're building these big developments up on hills. And so developers will have us go in there and build boulder retaining walls so you can, drive up the street, you look in everyone's backyard and there's a big boulder retaining wall back there. So, build house pads, and then the road might make a turn and then there's another row of house pads. So
is there a lot of engineering that goes into developing those retaining walls and setup of how to do that?
it can be. Pretty much most jurisdictions, cities or counties require anything over 4 feet tall to have be engineered, with a stamped engineer. So designed and then permitted by the city or county. So usually it's a 4 foot tall wall that requires that. And like I said, we do some walls that are, upwards of 22 feet tall. We did some down in Prosser that were that big, and obviously those are engineered.
Yeah. So what is the process to put up a 22-foot retaining wall? Like, is there like engineering, like talk me through that? Cause I've been, like we were talking earlier, I've been aware of RPC from the equipment side of it. So we've seen all your yellow iron and doing all that other stuff. But what's really interesting to me is the process you guys have to go through and what you guys actually use the machines for and how you use them.
Sure. So it basically starts with the keyway. So we got to have some flat surface to set the boulders on. So you dig in a little bit of a keyway. It might be 6 inches. It could be 2 feet deep. Sometimes that keyway will have gravel in there that's compacted. So you set the first course of boulders in that keyway. I would say that's one thing that's changed over the years. I have boulder walls at my house that RPC put in when we did our house back in 2004. It doesn't have fabric and spalls behind there. Now, pretty much every wall we do has fabric and spalls. So we'll put in that keyway, we'll drape fabric against the back bank, and then put the first course of boulders in, and then start to put in spalls, which are usually a fractured, 4-inch type rock. So now you have drainage or water. So say there's a rain or snow melt, that water, when it's coming down the hill or migrating through the soil, it will hit that fabric and spalls and be able to permeate and go through the fabric and spalls and ultimately out the wall and drain, which is one of the advantages of a boulder retaining wall. Is it's really good for drainage and having water go through the wall, where sometimes you can see like those landscape keystone blocks or concrete blocks, they seal almost too good. And so if there's a bunch of water behind that wall, especially in a big rainstorm, I don't know if you've seen them, where a keystone wall will basically blow out because there's so much pressure behind that wall.
Okay, so that's what causes that to have happen, is it's not usually like the load factor. There's just a ton of water behind it that gets...
I would say most often when you see a blowout like that, it's probably because there was a rainstorm or something like that put a lot of pressure behind there.
Oh, wow.
And so then when we're building our walls, if it's a 4-foot wall, maybe it's a 2 or 3 foot boulder in the bottom keyway. If it's a 22-foot wall, 18-foot wall, those boulders might be 5 feet in diameter at the bottom of it. We did one down in Meridian, our Star. When was that? Last year and the year before, kind of was in the winter time frame, where that one, we're actually supporting a canal. So at the back of the development, there's a canal that flows through there. I forget the name of it. But that one is almost like a trapezoid. So that doesn't just have one boulder in the bottom. It actually has several boulders stacked up in the bottom, and it's built up where it goes up on each side.
Oh, wow. And then
Kind of there's a batter on both sides, and then on the back is where the canal is running.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did not realize that there was that much going on with the retaining wall. That's something you just drive by and you take for granted.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of rocks sitting there.
Right.
And so how do you guys place, because right, so it's a boulder retaining wall. So how do you guys place the rock and kind of determine how the rocks are going to go together as you're building that wall?
Well, there is some, engineering. So that will say, your first course has to be 5-foot boulders, 4-foot boulders, 3-foot boulders, whatever. So we always are following the engineering that's required. Even when a wall, like say it's a 4-foot wall and doesn't require engineering and permitting, because our guys, that's what we do, is build engineered walls. We still build an engineered wall, even though maybe it wasn't engineered or permitted.
So how do you guys looking through that, right? And placing the boulders and stacking through that?
Yeah. So, I mean, that really comes down to the operators.
Okay.
They look at it. Just because you can operate a piece of equipment doesn't mean you're going to be a good wall builder. I mean, we've seen it both ways where, someone is a good operator, but they just don't have the vision to build the boulder wall. So, I mean, that's one thing our operators, they got a ton of talent. I mean, because they have to be able to operate the equipment, especially sometimes in these steep and deep type places where they're going down to a lake or a creek or something like that. So they got to be a talented operator. They got to have vision. They got to be efficient. We can't spend, all day building 100 square feet. We got a job to do.
Trying to figure that out.
I would too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you think about, because right, so the operator, you basically, so how do the rocks or the boulders, how do you guys come up with boulders and rocks, right? Like, do you guys mine those and blast that and build that all yourself, or do you guys source that from somewhere else?
It depends on the location. So here in Spokane, we work with, one of them is a farmer actually out by the airport. What we do there is they actually mine the boulders. So there's kind of a layer of boulders that are in the ground. They dig down, pile them up, and then we come in and take them, and we pay a royalty to that family. Other times around here, and that's basalt rock.
Yep.
Other times there's granite, fractured granite. Usually that's coming out of a hillside. So maybe there's a blasting that has to be done, or certainly excavation where they're getting that granite out of the hillside. So we do that. And then here in the valley, between basically Spokane and Coeur d'Alene, there's a lot of round granite in the ground. So I'm sure like this site here, this Western States building, when they were building it, dug up a bunch of boulders. They usually need to get rid of those things. So we work with a lot of contractors to try and, they need to get rid of the boulders and we could use boulders. So it's kind of like dirt. Someone needs it and someone needs to get rid of it. So
there you go.
We try and find those marriages.
Oh, there you go. So just work with local contractors and sources and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Tri-Cities is similar. We've got some rock sources around Tri-Cities. And then our Boise location that one's a little bit different because there really isn't rock for boulders around there in a lot of places. So we get our rock there most of it out of Weiser, Idaho. So we own ground out there and we mine the boulders out there. So we're digging, and that's something that's really evolved since I started in 2019, is what we're doing out there. We used to have a couple excavators. Now I think we've got 6 excavators out there, 3 haul trucks. We have 5 side dumps twice a day going out there and picking up boulders in Boise. That is a major operation out there.
Yeah, that's definitely growing. What's interesting here is that the diversity that you guys have to have in your business model depending on the rock source.
Sure.
Right. So how has that kind of evolved over the years too? And you guys kind of trying to figure out the right recipe based on each region and what works and what doesn't work?
Yeah, I mean, you got to have the rock source for sure. We'd like to have quarries all over the place, but we can't afford to do that. Our main business where we make our money is building boulder retaining walls. So we've got to find a source. Here in Spokane, there's been some, construction projects where they've got to blast out a hillside or something like that. So we work with construction companies to, again, come up with that marriage to get boulders. But that is one of the challenges for sure, is getting that material to use.
Yeah, and that's just an interesting, like when you think of the whole supply chain, right, of that you guys have to have, and there's other business models that have different supply chain of like where they've got to go to some other country or something like that to get their product.
Right.
You have to get yours somewhere out of the ground,
Yeah.
and it's very specific to each region.
And somewhat local.
Yeah.
You know, we can't be hauling boulders from, whatever, international or the East Coast. We do get our steps. Most of our steps come from Montana.
Okay.
And that's a little bit of a coordination. And those are natural sandstone steps that come out of the ground. And those come from more eastern Montana, and we ship those things over on flatbed trucks. And we take those steps to Spokane, Boise, and Tri-Cities. Use the same steps.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool how you guys have coordinated that. And I think the other thing that's really cool is working with local contractors and kind of, I don't know if the word's like recycling those boulders or finding good use for those boulders when you need them to, for different applications and stuff.
Yeah, because a lot of times they have to either get rid of it or bring in a crusher and break down the boulders and, come up with an aggregate product or something. And so, yeah, we can help get rid of those.
That's wow. So when let's talk about the operation in Weiser and how that's kind of expanded and grown. So what has been the main motivator and driver on your guys' side for the expand and growth down in Weiser with the mining operation? I'd call that a mining operation.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're MSHA, certified there. It was needing the rock source. So it used to be a landowner owned the ground, and we would pay him a royalty. And so he kind of wanted to get out of that business and focus his resources on other things. And so we ended up just buying the ground because we were like, we need boulders. So we ended up just purchasing that. And then just the Boise, you've seen it, the construction that's going on down there. There's just a big need for boulder walls and boulders. So that is our biggest operation down there, is Boise right now.
Just because the market demand and what's going on.
Sure.
Yeah, Boise's growing like crazy. I mean, it's been a really interesting, I grew up in Boise and watching it evolve over the past couple of years, and it's a very divided conversation that happened.
Sure.
But from ours, the way I look at it is it's good. It's growth, right? And all growth comes with challenge, failure, whatever that is. And there's always pros and cons that happen through that piece of it. So what size excavators do you guys run down there?
Well, for building our walls, whether it's here, Tri-Cities or Boise, pretty much the same size. 306, when you're talking cat models, a 306 is kind of the smallest one that we use for building walls. We got several 306s, got a 308, several 310s. The 310s are mainly in Tri-Cities and Boise because they have bigger projects. They need longer reach, bigger boulders. We have a 313 down in Boise. We have a 314 up here. So the mini excavators are what we're using to build the walls.
Okay. So just basically, so when you get there, does the operator kind of pick and choose which boulders go where, or do you guys design that in CAD and label the rocks and then say this is where it goes?
No, it's up to the operator. Yeah, so we'll, the sales project manager will go, sell the job, meet with the homeowner, and meet with the, one cool thing is we sell to homeowners, we sell to landscapers, we sell to home builders, we sell to developers, so it could be a Toll Brothers that's doing the development, Toll Brothers that's building the house, or it could be, Bob's Home Construction that's building the house, or a landscaper. So we sell to a lot of different people. So that sales and project manager will go meet with the customer, understand the scope of the job, and then talk to the operator. So once it's time that we're going to do it, tell the operator, hey, it's going to be an 8-foot wall. It's going to require, 4-foot boulders at the bottom. It's going to take this. So then we'll talk to our, dump truck drivers or side dump guys, or the guys that are driving our rock trucks, picking up the boulders, tell them, hey, it's an 8-foot wall. This is what they need. And then they just pretty much dump it on the ground or set it on the ground. And the operator takes it from there.
Okay, that's actually kind of interesting just to think about, because when we think about like building other projects, if we were going to build a house, that house has a very predetermined plan. This is how long each
got-
wall is going to be.
It's got a cut sheet.
It's got a cut sheet. They know exactly, you know, that framer or that carpenter knows exactly what they're going to do to frame that through.
Yeah.
This is a much more dynamic environment and situation, and it brings really to light your guys' operator skill set that you have to have.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that, you know, those operators, just because you're a good operator doesn't mean you're going to be a good wall builder.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to be able to see it, you know, spin around, look at the boulder, go, I know where that one's going to go. You know, pick it up,
Do you
plug
think
it
these
in.
guys are good at Tetris too? I mean,
He must be.
have you tested the Tetris skills versus the rock wall building skills yet?
I will say they're all good artists. You know, if you give them if you give them a sketch or say, hey, this is what we want to come up with, they're going to do a pretty good sketch. So I would say that those guys that are good wall builders are good artists.
Creative, very creative mindset.
Yeah. I mean, I can hardly draw a stick person, but they're really good.
Oh, that's really cool to think about the skill set that exists there with those guys and the creativeness that they have to bring to the projects every day.
Yeah.
One question I was kind of thinking through there too, and you mentioned like the dump truck drivers and the side dump drivers, are they involved in helping figure out the type of rock that you're going to bring to a project? Like, do they pick the rock too when they go to site based on where it's going?
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll tell them, you know, the side dump guys, like say in our Weezer operation. So we've got, again, 5 side dumps twice a day going out there and picking up boulders. So, you know, depending on who it is, if it's Oren, we'll say, hey, Oren, your load is going to go to so-and-so 8-foot wall. These are the rocks you need. So when Oren goes out there, whoever's loading him will know these rocks are going to an 8-foot wall. So he'll load the rocks.
Okay.
And then out here, like in Spokane, there's not a person to load the boulders like there is in our Weezer pit. So in Spokane, if we're loading them on a rock truck, our rock truck operators will just get up and they'll pick the rocks and they'll know where it's going to. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So there's a lot of very dynamic decision-making that happens amongst your team as the project is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So how have you developed a team that can be dynamic, understand the vision, and be that dynamic to be successful?
Part of it's repetition. So they've, you know, and some of them pick it up quicker than others. We've got 2 new operators here in Spokane this year, and they are like 5-year guys. I mean, their vision is great. They're skilled operators, but just making sure that everyone knows what we're doing so that when the guys are picking up boulders in Weezer or Spokane or somewhere down outside of Tri-Cities, they know what those boulders are for and where they're going to.
Do you guys use a software or something like that to track that communication or anything like that? Or is it just a team meeting and we all sit down and draw it out and talk about it?
Team meeting, job sheets, a board. I mean, every morning the guys come in, we've got a project board, shows, you know, what equipment is assigned to what people and what job it is. Sometimes it can be, you know, a job could be a month long or whatever. So those guys
they're aware
of it. Other times it's a brand new job on that Monday or Tuesday or whatever day it is. And so you kind of need to have a little team huddle, you know, whoever's bringing in boulders, whoever's building the wall, this is the plan. We're building the 6-foot wall. These are the boulders that are needed.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's kind of like break, goes and does her stuff.
That's that sounds really, really simple, but it's really effective.
Yeah.
And it's driving some good teamwork and collaboration and empowering people to make those decisions.
We try and empower the guys for sure. But as you know, construction, it's never perfect. You know, things come up, equipment breaks, a hose breaks, never on a cat equipment, but you know,
of course,
something happens. You know, and so we have to call audibles, you know, every day, pretty much we're calling audibles on something.
Yeah.
So it never goes perfect, but we get close.
Yeah. And the teamwork, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So as you talk about as we talk about the 3 different regions and what's going on there, we talked about how busy the Boise region is. What other like dynamics do you see from your perspective across our region and territory? Differences in the areas and what's going on, regulations, or what you guys have to do different to be successful?
Well, it's probably not a shock that I would say it's a little easier to work in Idaho than it is in Washington, some of the stuff. not so much building of the walls. I mean, that's the same, but just running the business. There's some extra challenges every once in a while in Washington and things we deal with. Um, I would say the job sites, like in Boise and Tri-Cities, oftentimes are more open. I don't know what it is, but the developers down there get us in earlier. And so it's really nice when, there's not other people working in there. Maybe, they put utilities in, and then we come in and build walls, then they put in streets, and they start putting in foundations and building houses. A lot of times I see in Spokane, there'll be a development, and there'll be different home builders will buy different lots. And so all of a sudden we're trying to dance around, a next door neighbor where there's already a house built. On the other side, maybe there's a foundation in, and we're trying to figure out how are we going to get our materials into this job site. All the places have that, but it seems like we deal with that more in Spokane than we do in Tri-Cities and Boise.
Yeah, that's interesting. So one thing that's been specifically the Boise region, and I spent a couple of years in the Tri-Cities regions too, is that those areas are both growing so fast. There's so much going on, and there's lots of new developers and subdivisions are having to go in, and it's cool how they've, that as they come in, they plan around you to make sure you're successful too.
Yeah.
And then the overall success of the project is there.
Well, that works
Yeah.
great. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a couple of builders down in Boise that we have, are some of our biggest customers for sure. And they understand what it takes for us to be successful and efficient, and we work together.
Yeah.
It's really nice. And we work together with developers and home builders here too. Maybe there's a couple of home builders that we've done, our biggest customers here too. And they're starting to understand it, where we can get in and do several houses in a row and not just onesie twosie stuff.
Yeah. Speed it up and make everything easier for everybody.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. So as we talk about all the projects, right? So we've kind of talked through some really interesting projects there. Think about one of the projects that stands out to you the most in the most recent 5-10 years or whatever that timeline is. Let's talk about it.
I know I was actually talking to my father-in-law, Terry, who started the business back in 98. I was talking to him, telling him I was going to do this, podcast. I've never done one before. I was talking to him yesterday, and I asked him that question. And the one that he mentioned is the Spokane Eye Clinic downtown.
Okay.
Obviously here in Spokane. And it's one that I would say a lot of people, when they find out that I work for Rock Placing or RPC, they're like, oh, you guys did that Spokane Eye Clinic. So it's right downtown. You can see it from Interstate 90. At the time, boy, I don't know when we did that thing. I'm guessing 08, 10, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. But it was one of the taller walls we'd ever built at the time. So I know that's a job that a lot of people know about, and it's kind of a hallmark job, I guess, for RPC. One that I think about that was fun to be a part of was one we did in Prosser outside of Tri-Cities. It was a big construction site. We worked with the dirt company, the excavation company. We would go in, and this is the one that had these 22-foot tall walls. And so when you'd pull up to the development, you would just see the wall, go across the hillside. It was long. I forget how long it was, but, and it was just cool because we'd go in, they had the ground pretty much prepped already. The keyway and everything all prepped. I think that one probably had gravel in the keyway, probably had a 2-foot embedment. So where the boulders were in the ground, a couple feet, had 5 and 6 foot boulders in the keyway. But what was fun about that one is we'd build a course or two of boulders, and that required geogrid every 2 feet. So every 2 feet we were putting that in. So we'd put in a course of boulders, put in the fabric, put in the spalls, lay out the geogrid, and then they would bring in a couple scrapers, big, huge scrapers. They would deposit the material, they'd spray it, they'd compact it. They would do all that, I swear, in a half an hour. So they were doing 450 feet long, and going out probably 15, 20 feet from the wall. They would do that, and then we'd go back and we'd put another course in and take, a couple days or however long it was, put another course in, and then here come those guys again with all that material, and boom. So it was just, that was a fun project, just seeing all the the coordination that had to go on. And that was my first experience probably of seeing big iron, those big scrapers moving around and basically changing a hillside. That was pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. So when you get back on that project, what were you most proud of as you worked through that? What was like the coolest, and this is the thing I'm the most proud of?
Just seeing those walls, seeing the what the guys did. And I remember I've got a picture of the guys standing up on top of the wall, and then you can really get a sense of the scale of how big that stuff was. So just seeing the scale and how fast it went together.
Yeah, that's cool. And the teamwork and the collaboration and the execution is pretty impressive too, because to time that project out had to be a little bit of a coordination effort too amongst everybody.
Yeah, working definitely with the excavation company. Absolutely. Another one we just did this year, we've been working down with Boise Hunter Homes, and that job site it's out in the Dry Creek area. And I think we had 6 crews out there earlier this year working at the same time, all on different boulders, different projects. So that was kind of fun because you'd come into that job site and there's, rock trucks and excavators and stuff, just, all RPC people banging away out there, building walls. It was cool.
That's awesome. So how many employees do you guys have?
Well, we have, obviously our Boise, Spokane, Tri-Cities. We have another business that's kind of a sister company, so I kind of lump it all together. It's CMCI, or Conveyor and Materials, down in Boise. So we've got conveyor trucks down there where we can convey material, and we've got, dump trucks and truck and pups and hauling. But if you add up all the employees, the quarries, all the office staff, I mean, we're pushing at 100 people right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you guys have grown. So you guys have a field tech named Joey down in Boise.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
So Joey, I do CrossFit.
Oh.
I'm a 5:30 a.m. guy.
Okay.
And in walks Joey one day.
Mm-hmm.
And from being a heavy equipment mechanic and knowing Joey, I'm like, what are you doing here, man? You're going to go out all day and sling wrenches all day long.
Yeah.
You're going to come in and get your workout done and go from there.
Yeah.
And I've never seen a kid, and he's a kid, I can call him that probably.
Oh, yeah.
Come in, get his workout on, and then load up in a service truck and go to work.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a working son of a gun.
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you, that guy, I mean, you see him beginning of the day to end of the day.
Yeah.
And, he's probably been under equipment, around equipment, under trucks. I mean, that guy, he gets in fights with grease guns and oil all day long.
Yes, he does.
It is funny.
Yep.
But, he's a rock, man, that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool when because he first showed, they kind of started coming in the winter. And it took me a couple days to realize that was his service truck parked out front.
Mm-hmm.
And then I connected a couple more dots a couple days later, because it's 5:30 in the morning, right? And it's still waking up. And then I'm like, dude, you're going to come do this. We just got done squatting a ton of weight over here. And now you're going to go sling wrenches, get in fights with grease guns and oil all day.
Yeah.
And then they'll see you tomorrow morning, huh? And he goes, yeah, I'll be back.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he's up at Weezer, a couple days a week probably. And obviously the equipment that we have up there, our biggest machine up there is a Cat 374. So, you're not slinging a lot of stuff around up there. That's big parts up there.
Takes a lot of planning, right, to work on those machines. So that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. So let's talk a little bit about the yellow iron, right? Let's talk through what you guys' fleet. So what you guys when you talk about Cat machines and yellow iron, how many machines do you guys have?
Oh man, I should have probably looked at that before I came here. I know our number. We number every truck or a piece of equipment. I think rock placing and RPC, we're up to 167. And CMCI, I think, is at 21.
Oh, wow.
But then for the longest time, we would buy a truck and a pup and it would have the same number. But that started to get to be a little bit of a pain because we started swapping trucks and pups and rock trailers and equipment trailers. And so now we started, but this has only been in the last year or two, we started giving trailers its own number. So, we have 180 pieces of equipment, I'm sure, and trucks and pickups and all that good stuff.
That's getting to be a pretty decent sized fleet.
Oh, it is. Yeah, every beginning of every year, we have a manager meeting, kind of an offsite manager meeting, and we get together and we look at, you know, what do we have in the fleet? What things do we need to retire? What things do we need to purchase? And yeah, you see that list of stuff. It's a lot.
No. So do you guys have a fleet manager that's on your guys' team, or what's your guys' fleet manage practice or strategy?
I hate to say it, but we don't really have a fleet manager. I mean, we have branch managers
Okay.
in charge of each branch. And by and large, you know, when we purchase something, it stays at that branch. You know, they look at their forecast or something that's getting older and they know it's time to retire that piece of equipment. But every once in a while, because like Boise, for example, with just the expansion that they've had so fast, it's like, hey, we need to get another equipment trailer down to Boise. So we took 4-axle equipment trailer from Tri-Cities, moved it down to Boise. Now we're going to buy one that Boise would have bought, but they didn't have time to wait for it. And that's going to go back to Tri-Cities. So we do some of that swapping, but we don't really have a fleet manager. It's probably me, to be honest with you.
So his name's Dan. We just met him. We just met the fleet manager,
Right.
which is great. I mean, and there's no right or wrong part of that process or right or wrong answer. It's just interesting to kind of understand how you guys are successful, because you guys are winning today. You're successful. You guys are growing.
Yeah, for sure.
And which is exciting. So it's working.
Yeah.
You know, as you work through that. So when you guys are looking at buying heavy equipment or buying machines, how do you guys know which machine to buy, or how do you guys figure out the type of equipment that you need?
I know when I came on, most of our mini excavators were another brand. They were not Cat. In fact, I don't even think we had any. We didn't have any Cat mini excavators. It was all one of your competitors, an orange one. So we started, you know, we wanted to get some more excavators. We really started to expand when I came on, and we went and basically tested them out. And at the time, we had settled on the previous manufacturer because, you know, pound for pound, they were the strongest machine out there. And we kind of expected that was going to be the case again, but we went and we tested them. You know, said, hey, we're coming out. We want to bring some operators out, do some tests. A lot of times they would set up in an ecology block or something like that, stretch out, see if we could pick it up. And those, it was the 306s at the time and the 310s, and they were just way stronger. I think you guys must have had an evolution in those mini excavators or something like that. And all of a sudden they surpassed. And so we've pretty much, that's all we've bought since.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So basically
For the mini ones, we bought some other bigger ones, but for the minis, it's like I said, 306, 308, 310, 313, 314.
those are your bread and butter that's on every job site placing rock.
I'd say the 306 and the 310s are probably the two. Yeah.
Nice.
The other one that's, is on pretty much every job site are your skid steers.
Okay.
Same thing. That was kind of done before I was there, but they had done testing of different skid steers, and we pretty much have. I think there's a few that aren't Cat that were, older ones, but it's all Cat now. 279s, 289s, 259s. We have a couple 255s now, ordered a 275. So those skid steers are pretty much on just about every job site.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked for that 275. That's a good new machine that they've come out with a lift capacity and redesign of that.
Yeah, we had a rental one for one of our jobs in Boise, and they loved it. So now we're buying it.
The operators just loved it. Is that what it was, or?
Yeah, and just that job, we needed a little bit bigger one because we've been buying a couple 255s and they've been working fine, but that one just had a lot of gravel backfill for a new type of wall that we're putting in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So those things are, they're hauling 5,000-6,000 pound boulders. Some of those things. We've put those things through the test. Our business is not moving sand. Boulders are tough on equipment, trucks, all that stuff. And those skid steers, they have held up for sure.
That's good. That's good to hear, because the Cat skid steer, we're not the cheapest, we know that.
Yeah.
But, we kind of stake our name to the quality and then the support post-sale to make sure it's up and running.
Yeah.
That's kind of our value prop and how we work through that. So.
Well, and the service thing absolutely is a factor. when a company can support our service and have parts, in stock versus, okay, yeah, I'll order that thing and it'll be here next week. I mean, every once in a while that happens on an exception, but, cat parts are in stock pretty much for all of our equipment. And that's nice. And the service techs are great. Service techs are going out to our Weezer pit all the time, helping out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're dealing with 3 of our locations too across the board, right?
Mhm.
And experience all 3.
Yeah, all Western
regions.
states.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all 3 different ones across that are different locations, and that's pretty cool.
And that's one thing that's a little different is, some of your competitors, like say the John Deere dealer, that's not that way. It's a different dealer down there than it is up here, different in Tri-Cities. And the same thing with Kubota. And that's another one we use sometimes.
Yes, that ease of business I can understand being nice, right? Because Liberty Lake or Spokane region, we have a good presence. Pasco's another great store for us, and Boise is our headquarters.
Yep.
And so there's that really nice piece of that. So when you look at service and what do you guys expect from an equipment manufacturer or provider from a service standpoint and a parts standpoint to be successful?
Well, parts in stock, a service tech where we are, especially like Joey, who you talked about, or our mechanic up here, Mike Barney, where they can call and talk to someone, and get answers fast. I would say the parts thing, some of these other dealers we deal with, some of the smaller ones, I would say, it's hard finding someone that knows what they're talking about. And especially the smaller ones having the parts in stock. And that's been a frustration.
So how do you guys buy your parts? Do you guys buy your parts online, or do you guys come into the store and buy them here, or call us and order them on the phone?
I would say it's online. Well, it depends. If it's something that's broken out in the field, it's probably a phone call. If it's more just, service parts, filters, that kind of stuff, that's probably ordered online. Honestly, I don't order that, so.
That's all right too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's been a big, like in our world in the past couple of years, there's been a big understanding of how do we serve our customers better. So some of that is we need to have availability of parts online, so you can order them when you need them to be, or you can come into the branch and get them, or call our guys and we'll ship it to you guys.
Right.
Right, there's got to be, because I think each of those different needs of where you guys are at will determine how to get those parts differently to be successful. And it's interesting, you kind of broke that down already in that thought process.
Well, I've, done a tour of this facility and gone back there and seen your parts bins, and, you guys have a lot of obviously you have a lot of different equipment out there, not just stuff that we use, but yeah, you guys have a ton of parts here. The cool thing about Western States and where you guys are located is probably honestly every one of your locations is 2 or 3 miles from our place. So our Meridian place is just across the interstate from your guys' Meridian place. Pasco is just down the street. This one here is just a couple miles away. So
yeah, conveniently that we either move close to you or you move close to us.
Yeah, you guys have an operation in Nampa because that's where we're building our next place down there. So
that's great feedback.
Yeah,
well,
we need that to be close.
Yeah, and I think the Boise region is just crazy, and what's going on down there. So let's talk about your 374 a little bit, because that's your biggest piece of yellow iron, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and that one, when we purchased that, I was used to mini prices and skid steer prices, and then all of a sudden I see the price of that, and I'm like, what? So, yeah, that one made me pucker for sure.
Yeah,
it's a big machine, but you see that thing, you walk up to it in person, and it's impressive.
Yeah. So what drove you guys to want to buy a 374 of that size machine?
So I was, going out, seeing the quarry, talking to the guys out there. Our manager down in Boise, Nate Ackerman, awesome, does an awesome job. We went out to look at the quarry and just watching them, pull boulders. They basically, they'll clear out, say, 30 feet of overburden just to get to the boulders in Weezer. So they're clearing out all this overburden, piling it up. Then the excavator sits there, and I witnessed one of them trying to pull a boulder out of a hill. So it grabs onto the boulder, it's pulling, but it's not pulling the boulder's pulling the excavator, into the hill or into the hole. Eventually, I watched, and it, eventually he kind of worked its way out, scraping the boulder, falling off, rolling back in, you know. Eventually he got it out and then kind of scooted it to where then we can have another excavator that has a hammer on it and it'll break it up and put it into different chunks. And so talking to Nate, it's like, we need to get a bigger excavator. And, you know, we looked at basically John Deere and your guys's offerings, and, you know, it came down to the specs, you know, the size and all that stuff, and price does factor in.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we have good service and support from both of those manufacturers, so that really wasn't a factor in that case. So it was just size and price.
There you go.
Yeah.
So what's interesting, and we kind of talked about a little bit in the equipment management world, and just kind of for you, that there's four main things we look at the equipment management world. First one, to be successful in fleet management, you have to, first thing is know your cost, operating cost and capital cost.
Yep.
Right, that's important. Then you have to basically from there utilize the machine, maximize the utilization of it, right, to get done what you needed to get done. Then you got to keep it from breaking.
Yep.
Step one, because you got to have it running.
Yep.
And then the last piece of it, in all your fleet, you're going to manage the average age of it.
Yep.
Right. And so if you take those four things together, it's called the fundamentals of equipment economics.
Yep.
And basically it's this nice balancing part of, like, if you do these things just right, that's how you know you're going to be good at that fleet management perspective.
Yep.
So as you were just talking through that purchase of the 374, you know, the utilization conversation came up as you needed a machine that was going to utilize for the application. But then you got to make sure you're managing your cost and understanding your costs as you work through that too.
Yep.
It's just an interesting perspective to listen, like, from, you know, as managing a business and what that looks like, of how you're applying some of those principles to the fleet and making sure you're successful.
Yeah.
So did you have background in fleet management or anything like that before you got here?
No, I mean, my background was aerospace, so not really fleet management. I guess I would deal with spare parts and that kind of stuff. And certainly, you know, my customers at that time, that was a factor for them. But not really equipment or truck fleet stuff. I mean, I rely on guys that have been in the business a long time. You know, we have several guys. Guy Smith was Terry's first employee 26 years ago. He's still at the company. He's seen a lot of, you know, purchasing of equipment. He's been around a long time. So you lean on the guys that have been around a long time. One thing I'll say about that 374 too, I did want to mention just how strong that machine is and how, you know, well, how strong it is. So that sucker, it can pull, you know, 40, 50 ton boulders. Doesn't really lift them necessarily, but it'll move them, you know, pull them out of the hole. And then we'll, again, bring in an excavator with a hammer, break up that boulder, and that thing will fill more than a side dump. You know, those boulders are literally the size of a school bus.
Oh, wow.
You break that thing up in chunks and it'll fill more than a, you know, side dump.
Wow.
29 ton side dump, whatever.
So that thing will just drag those boulders around and just move them around.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It is. It's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah. That's
really, I took Terry down to the quarry last fall, and it had just, our business has grown so much really since he was actively involved. And so took him down to that quarry, and he was like a kid in a candy store, just seeing all that equipment moving around and all those big excavators down there.
Yeah. That's some serious growth of the business from Terry starting it. When did he start it again?
98.
98. So you guys have been in business for 27 years, right? Did I do that math right?
In December, it'll be 27.
December will be 27 years.
Yep.
Wow, that's really cool. So what does the future look like for RPC? What does the next 27 years look like?
Just keep doing what we're doing. I mean, obviously, you know, when you've been in business for almost 27 years, you're doing something right. Taking care of customers, offering value to customers. You know, there's, knock on wood, you know, the construction industry is still growing, and the areas that we're operating in are growing, you know, Boise for sure, Spokane, Tri-Cities. We are looking to expand a little bit. You know, we keep talking about maybe Montana. We actually have our first job in Montana coming up here shortly. Well, I think we've done maybe some little ones in the past, but larger job coming up in Montana. So we're excited for that because people will see that one. You know, I think it's just keep growing. Our customers are pulling us along, honestly. They're the ones that are need more and more. And so we just keep following those guys.
Oh, there you go. So what is your guys' recipe for making sure your customers are happy?
That starts with, well, building a good product, one that you don't have to go back and fix or repair. So building a good product, being creative, so our guys, when we're done with the job, when we pull out and the customer, almost like, you see those home and garden shows on TV, where the customer sees their house for the first time and they see these boulder walls and they're like, wow, that is awesome. So you obviously got to please your customers, and that starts with everyone in the chain, from when someone calls our office and wants to schedule, talk about a boulder retaining wall, schedule a site visit. Our sales and project managers go out and do a site visit. You got to have good communication all the way through the process. And sometimes, you got to listen to the customer, but our folks have been around a long time. So maybe their idea is what they think needs to be done. And we're certainly happy to do that if that's what they want to do, but we'll throw in some other ideas. Hey, have you thought about this? What about instead of doing an 8-foot wall that's going to require engineering and permitting, maybe we do 2 4-foot walls and terrace it. Then you don't have to go through that process. What about putting, if we're going to put in this wall, how are you going to go get balls that get kicked off the yard down below? Maybe we should put in some steps or something like that. So I think our guys are really creative and have been around a long time and have good ideas. And then, even the invoicing process and making sure it's easy to pay their bill, all that stuff.
Well, that's cool. So it's kind of this great big winning recipe all shoved together.
And it all honestly circles around the customer, making it easy on them.
So when you first came to the business from aerospace into RPC, what was that journey like personally for you? Because those are probably a little bit different industries in scope.
Yeah. Well, I had been around the business, saw my father-in-law start it. So I met my wife at Gonzaga. That's Terry's oldest daughter. So I'd been around the business, helped Terry actually design the first logo 26 years ago.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'd kind of been around it, attended a couple Christmas parties here and there, saw the offices being built in, Spokane. But it was different. I mean, I would say the aerospace industry is a lot of, more office, white collar environment, at least the stuff I was dealing with, mechanical engineer, and then moved into project management and sales and business development. So I was dealing, it was more of a white collar environment versus a blue collar environment. And so that took not really getting used to, but it was just different. But I've come to really appreciate that. I mean, and the other thing is I didn't really know a ton about construction. Yeah, I'd seen roads being built or houses or buildings or whatever, but I didn't really have an appreciation for what goes into construction. And so that's something that I've definitely gained over the last 6 years, almost 6 years, is just seeing how it's a great field for young people, old people, whatever. I mean, I didn't start till I was 28 years in aerospace, and I came over, and I came in, I would say, wet behind the ears. It's like, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that. And I was trying to apply a lot of the stuff that I knew from aerospace into our work at RPC. And honestly, some of it was not good. I made some mistakes. I'm sure the guys will tell you that, but I've evolved, and I don't know. I really do appreciate the construction industry and met a lot of good friends through it now, and it's fun.
That's a pretty cool growth story, right? Of transition for you and the shift in thought process and mindset.
Yeah, I know I tell people when I was making that transition, because it was a surprise for a lot of people, for sure. They thought I would do that forever. And, I was like, yeah, I'm going from things that fly to things that are firmly planted on the ground.
That's a cool transition story.
Yeah.
Nice. So when we, so one of the things that's been interesting talking to a lot of different industries and people is finding the right people to come to work for them.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do to attract talent or labor or people to come to your team or your business?
I think a couple things. One is building rock walls every one of them's different. It's not like I mean, the process, yes, we do boulders, fabrics, balls, that kind of stuff, but they're all different environments where we're working at, whether we're going down to a lake or a creek or something like that and working our way out. So I think the work is different, challenging. You get to use your brain. It's creative. And we've had guys that, have been at RPC. They'll leave. They'll maybe go to a construction company. They'll drive a truck all day or whatever. And then they're like, man, I just miss that creativity that I get to do at rock placing. And they've come back. We've had several employees that have done that. So that's one, is just having a fun place to work. I think the culture that Terry started back in '98 was it was a family environment. I mean, it really was a family. I mean, it was Terry, Marilyn, Guy was the first employee. They would have Christmas parties at Terry Marilyn's house for years. I hear a lot of the stories, and it was definitely a family environment. We've tried to continue that. We still have Christmas parties. We had an all company picnic or camp out down at Whitebird 2 years. We did one up at Priest Lake a couple years ago. So bringing everyone together is fun, but it is honestly getting a little bit harder to do when you've got 100 employees and spouses and that kind of stuff. But having that family environment, fun environment, and our guys, you hear the term work hard, play hard. Our guys are hard workers, but then, when they're not working weekends and stuff, they go camping together, they go boating together, they ride side by sides, they hunt together. It's kind of fun to see that environment. And then Terry was always really big on benefits. And so that's one thing too. And I think that sets us apart from some of the other construction companies out there, is just the benefits that we still offer employees. So, and every year we sit down with our employees when we go through our reviews, and it's like, okay, this is what the benefits are. This is how many hours you worked. You divide those hours into your benefits. This is how much more you're actually getting. So you're not just getting this much an hour, you're actually getting this much an hour when you factor in, holidays, PTO, healthcare, dental, all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's pretty cool. Sounds like a great place to be and work.
Yeah,
That's
sure
really
is.
cool. So is there a good career path for a young person coming in to the construction industry or your team to have a lifelong career there?
Yeah. I mean, we've got one of our, well, pretty much most of our sales project managers, I would say the best ones actually came from being an operator. So maybe they came and they were a ground guy, someone that's on the ground helping the operator, working the skid steer, helping, especially when you're doing a blind set wall and you can't see the face of the wall, you really rely on that ground guy to help you, what way to rotate the boulder, that kind of stuff. So they've started at, as a ground guy, all of a sudden they become an operator and sales project management.
That's pretty cool how there's that career progression that can be there if somebody's willing to put in the energy and effort.
Yeah.
Right? Not a formal college. I think one of the things that's interesting too is everybody's like, you got to have a college education anymore in life. But there's so many things out there that you can be successful and have a great career at if you're willing to put the energy and effort in.
Absolutely. And you've probably seen it, where you do an interview with someone and you can just tell pretty quickly how you think they're going to be. Even if they don't even know how to build a boulder wall, you could just tell, like you say, energy, want to learn. And so we can, when guys join our team, it's pretty quick when we can realize, okay, this is going to be a long-term person, or this one's probably not going to make it here.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's cool you guys take the time and energy to develop those people when they're willing to put in the energy and effort.
Yeah.
I think that's a key thing.
And building quality walls and stuff, it starts with our senior guys. You bring in a newbie, they don't know how to build a boulder wall. So we definitely try and focus on doing some training. That team is going to be a little bit slower for a while because you are spending some time training that new person, but eventually they'll get there.
Well, Dan, thanks for joining me today.
Yep.
I much appreciate the time and energy. Where can people figure out and find more about Rock Placing Company?
Our website, that's one.
Okay.
www.rockplacingco.com.
There you go.
That's probably the best. The internet. Go to the internet, search Rock Placing Company, and you'll find us.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and it's been absolutely fascinating to learn about your guys' business.
Sure.
What you guys do.